Ready with transmission. We can start with the broadcast. So it's a great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you in Jasionka during the following edition of European Agricultural Forum, during panel debate at which we will be considering very important issue, not only for farmers over the recent years. That means eco-schemes. We will be discussing whether these eco-schemes implemented in 2023 and continued on in 2024-5, have they had the effect planned, and how we evaluate their implementation, and proposals for changes from this year's call. And our guests here will be people who view the eco-schemes from various perspectives. It's a great pleasure to welcome a representative of Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Stefan Krajewski, Secretary of State, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Areas Development, and also Mr. Vice President of ARiMR, Leszek Szymański. Welcome.
Jest z nami także przedstawiciel rolników.
Also representative of farmers and national chambers of farmers, Mr. Robert Nowak, Vice President of the National Council of Agriculture Chambers, and representatives of agro sector who have been especially involved. It's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Peczka, Jarosław Peczka, owner of Biogen and co-owner of BioLeader and PROCAM Poland, and Baucza, President of Foundation for Development of Agriculture, named Terra, Nostra. My name is Bartłomiej, Czekała, and I represent AgroHorti media, publishing papers like Poradnik Rolniczy, Wiadomości Rolnicze Polska, and Tygodnik Rolniczy PL or WRB-PL. Eco-schemes, topic very important for farmers, and I would like to start our debate from summarizing what happened before the eco-schemes were introduced, because I remember very well participating as editor in many meetings with farmers. Such trainings, meetings were organized by Agency of Restructurization as well as Ministry, who were to make farmers familiar, and there were lots of doubts what these eco-schemes are, what will change, will the payment be available. There were lots of questions, and therefore let me address my question first of all to representatives of Ministry of Agriculture and Agency for Restructuring. What were the greatest challenges related to eco-schemes, and have they been confirmed? Mr. Krajewski, please. Well, firstly, before I start, let us start the clock so that we know where we are in the debate. And I would like to thank you very kindly for invitation to this debate topic, which is extremely important and significant for farmers, but not only for farmers, but for all those who fill in the applications and train farmers, because every change is bringing the new. So such worries, they have been in place from the very beginning, from the accession to the EU for the first time when we applied for area applications and new support schemes and new payments. All that raised lots of worries, what it will look like and how we will get prepared for it. This time it was not different, and the strategic plan, which was prepared by the Polish government, which had almost 1,500 pages describing all these activities, mechanisms and interventions in which farmers since 2023 till 2027 may benefit from, and a large proportion of that is a result of European policy and focus on this pro-environmental and pro-climate activities. And of course, this is also a good topic for the time of peace and quiet time, because today when we see other challenges showing up related to all Europe, I think that this debate, not only from a national perspective, but European perspective, should take place, and this revision of the whole European Green Deal and other topics of this kind should come today. Such a reflection is needed. What should we work on to continue, and how our challenges are changing, our needs, and this is what we should be discussing. Of course, this year 2023 was most difficult when, for the first time, farmers were to file their applications based on eco-schemes, and both the area-related as well as the well-being of animals, all what was being prepared, and work of Ministry of Agriculture, and we were one of the countries that was actually taking in those activities as one of the first. Today it is easier because we have some experience, we have points of references, and therefore changes in eco-schemes are appearing, some of them being a result of coordination with the European Commission, some being postulates raised by farmers, by sectoral organizations, by agricultural chambers and trade unions. And I also want to thank you for every opinion expressed, because we also have to look from the regional perspective. Other needs in Podkarpackie region we are in, and different in other like Zachodniopomorskie, and all these aspects should be taken into account. What works in one region does not necessarily have to work in the other. And of course, here we have to do our utmost for the funds to be possibly best utilized, to have the basic assumptions fulfilled. But also here we mainly talk about strategic plan, and also two large challenges for the Ministry, for Agency of Restructuring. This is spending all the funds from the area of development of rural areas for the period, so that we do not need to return the money to Brussels. And the next one is National Reconstruction Plan. There are also applications filed at Agency of Restructuring, and we want those applications to be dealt with efficiently and quickly. And when we were entering the new programming period and those eco schemes, the whole strategic plan, we had to prepare Agency of Restructuring for new challenges, new systems, and we had a vast problem when already activities were going in and IT systems were not adapted to this. We succeeded thanks to the efforts of the current management of the agency. So here, thanks to the president and the whole board of the agencies, that these problems have been solved on the way. Today, really, the agency is working efficiently, although it is not ideal yet, I guess, but we are aiming at this, and for this I motivate the management of the agency at each and every meeting. And well, I hope you understand. Sometimes I shout at you, but this is aimed at most efficiently spending the funds. I could talk at length, but with respect to the opinions of other participants, unless the moderator wants something more. In this topic, it is all. I'm very interested in the opinion of Leszek Szymański. Mr. President, what were the barriers, challenges on your side, which you noticed before implementation and during eco schemes, and how do you evaluate it from a 2-year perspective already? Well, thank you very much thank you for the invitation. Well, looking from the level of the agency, we can draw various conclusions, but we have to remember that farmers in the period 2015 and 2020 were applying for greening fees or payments. The payment was about 305 zloty, so they knew what they could count upon, provided they fulfill appropriate requirements regarding diversification of crops and maintaining permanent green areas in their farms, or maintaining elements which are pro-ecological. And suddenly 2023 comes and we say greening changes into eco schemes and how to implement this. What Mr. Minister said, we are building the system according to the rules which have been prepared. Of course, they were changing as a result of discussion of the ministry. The rules were changing, so we had to parallelly build IT system, thanks to which we will be able to take in those applications and study them. And a moment of table of connections published by the ministry appeared. And, well, what to use and what payments exclude others, and what I must do to go into the eco scheme payments, because we remember there were 6 eco schemes, 5 of them related to area and 1 related to well-being, and also carbon-based agriculture. How to combine all that with ecological and environmental effect in mind. Our farmers asked what to do for the possibly largest amount of the money to stay after implementation of all that within eco schemes, and all the worries at the side of the agency. As Mr. Minister said, we had the implementator of the system and we had to terminate the agreement with IT system contractor. Parallel calls for applications were going on, so we were prepared to take in the applications but not to verify them. But at the end it appeared that 415,000 farmers applied for payments. So every third farmer, out of this 399,000 farmers made use or benefited from implementation of carbon agriculture. And, well, is it much or little? We are talking in the aspect of success, because in the following year we saw that increasing number of farmers was not so significant. So those farmers who want to keep developing and who want to benefit from eco schemes benefited already in the first year. Those who were in doubt or were not prepared yet with a machine depot, or they had some doubts, finally they benefited in 2024. And looking at these elements of implementation, so the main slogan, which from my perspective, from the level of agency was coming in, it was a geo-tagged photo, and those pictures were the whole evil of the eco schemes, and just based on being careful to avoid interactions with farmers, well, geo-tagged photos. I would gladly return to this topic, but wrapping up, farmers responded very positively, in my opinion, looking at the number of applications filed and the amounts they received from the payments, analyzing even the farm and payments the farmers received. The payments were higher in 2023 among farmers who benefited from eco schemes, in spite of the fact that we had unfavorable euro exchange rate, because we had over 4.8, then it was 4.63, so euro dropped by 0.2 almost, but analyzing 2024, it was 4.27. Well, the farmer says there was more money expected, so we approached the analysis differently, so that the farmer can see whether the solutions and practices are beneficial financially, because actually euro exchange rate is outside our influence. So maybe that much from me, respecting time. And now I would like to hear the opinion of farmers. Mr. Nowak, president of KRIR. So at the beginning there were some worries, but there were some exclusions, because farmers who use the eco-climate program, they couldn't benefit because you cannot get subsidy to the same practice. So partly they could not benefit from it. But what is your evaluation of the eco schemes from the perspective of beneficiaries of the system? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you also for our invitation. Back to the state 3 years back, we must say that farmers
nie są zadowoleni.
Are not satisfied neither from introduction of eco schemes nor from certain requirements of eco conditions. They must adapt to conditions created by politicians, both at the level of European Commission as well as in domestic policy. But at the same time, I want to highlight very strongly that every sensible farmer will take care of his workplace, so also of soil, doing production so that the soil is always in good culture and brings appropriate and measurable results. Increase in interest in eco schemes compared to 2023 resulted also from the fact that reduced rate of payment from PO made some farmers realize that eco schemes are actually a direction for, firstly, by the way of applied practices to take care of the environment, to improve the content of carbon in the soil, but also to include payments, so participate in sharing the cake of common policy. It is not a big cake, it is a tiny cake. There are less and less funds available, and I think we must be using the situation we are in when we have the presidency in the EU and talk about the future shape of common agricultural policy and how pro-environmental practices should be funded, because common agricultural policy should support improving competitiveness of European agriculture, but environmental practices take the whole package related to forestation or Nature 2000. In our opinion, these practices should be funded from outside the budget of common agricultural policy, so from pro-environmental funds. That would result, because soon in this panel we will come to discussion about height of rates, why they are dropping, why they are not known up front. So I think we have to be considering very strongly in this direction. And the question of what is happening now in geopolitics, the US actually getting away from Paris Accord and question of emission of CO2 and so on, we understand all that for sure. But all the more that in agriculture we notice reduction of CO2 emissions. Please remember that from a farmer's perspective, to decide for specific eco schemes is a decision accompanied by specific costs. Eco schemes are not free of charge. Either you have to invest in appropriate machine depot, or you have to invest on areas in animal breeding. So farmers are actually facing a choice, which scheme to introduce in my conditions of my farm, because a farm is a living organism and we have to take into account what we have in the farm. So what conditions we have, both related to the construction substance, quality of soil, and what we have available regarding fertilization and climate issues, and what we are growing in the farm. So for us it is significant to at least more or less know what will the farm benefit on the given practice, also regarding the rate of payment. Well, I realize that the state is as it is, 25%. There are envelopes and there's specific number of money, a lot of applications, reduction of payment, but this is very not positive from farmers' perspective regarding planning in the farm. I remember at that time the agency, as Mr. President and Mr. Minister said, had problems with systems, and we as farmers had a problem what to enter, how to enter, and here is also a question of shortage of knowledge at the very beginning. So this effect of the second year and increase of interest in eco schemes is also the fact that education level in farmers and advisors also went up, because advisors also gained better knowledge and they were able to propose something more, what was better for the given farm. So from the perspective of this perspective, when it was being introduced, there were worries, and here Mr. Minister was saying, was talking about revision of the Green Deal. It is necessary in the context of what has gone through Europe, because it is not only the question of approach of Polish farmers, but all over the EU, because we had protests in every country practically. Thank you. Thank you. And continuing on this topic, because we have also representatives of two companies who are very close to the farmer in the field and the farm. I'm interested to hear your perspective, whether the recent the third year of introducing eco schemes, was it actually motivating farmers to pro-environmental practices, or was it more sanctioning what farmers have already done? Because many farmers have been applying it. But what is your opinion, whether eco schemes acted as a financial motivator, a possibility getting the payment, but also the practices which are not just a dry declaration in the application, but they are activities which ARiMR is controlling in this way or other in the farm. So were they happening really in farms? Well, Mr. Baucza, please. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to... Well, eco schemes, that means pro-environmental practices. 415,000 of farmers were mentioned here. I think that great majority of those, significant majority of these farmers had been doing it earlier, and they were not motivated by additional payments, but just their economic aspect in their farm, their business, to optimize their production. At least this is what I think. Cooperating with many farmers, not only in Poland, but all through Europe, they got to this earlier. So I think that this only and solely helped them, and all the more for the income side of the farm to be seen from a different perspective. But I would like to consider and ask what effects we have from this 415,000 farmers. How many actually improved quality of their soil? Because if we heard about soil, huge investment here, well, I think farmers made investment earlier, investment which allowed them to fit into eco schemes, or be it change model of growing and so on. But for how many the pro-environmental effect was introduced? Because when we were introducing eco schemes in order to have better soil, which was mentioned here, so how many farmers out of the number of 415,000 can show now that they improved their fields, or at least kept them in the same state, not worse? How many farmers that can be? Well, it's an open question. Yes, a very open question, because I would like to base on facts, on reality. So if we are to improve our environment, our soils, our farms, so I would like us to somehow prove this. And in my opinion, if we tried, because here we also heard that all the time work is going on about how to adapt eco schemes still more for them to be better, more beneficial, more farmer friendly, and so on. So perhaps let us try to pay farmers specific money for results, and not for individual practices, so that we have something measurable, that we can prove it, that we have facts, and not only, because I don't know what is the benefit for a farmer who will mix organic fertilizers within 12 hours or 24 hours. I don't know. I don't have data, and I think no farmer has the data. But I would like us to try, at least if work is going on how to adapt it still better, so that it is better, so that we are paying for specific results. If farmers who changed, who improved their fields, and they can prove it through soil tests and so on and so forth, if they did it, they will get specific money. They should, because this means they didn't harm their fields. They improved their environment surrounding them. I don't care how they got to it. The result, the outcome. And I dream of a situation when we will not treat eco schemes or additional payments as additional revenue. It is just common sense practice. Eco schemes should be treated as something normal. It is standard. We, as all farmers, we should be doing it because it is our business. And this is how I would like to approach it, not as something additional, because when I hear opinions that if now rates for eco schemes have been changed and farmers ask the ministry if they are to return to plowing, then I think deep, what is the sense of it? So whether motivator for having better soil, more productive, better optimized agricultural production, is it only the subsidy? No, in my opinion, it's vast. I would like to see it from a different perspective, so that we try to distribute the vast money in such a way for really specific results. Thank you for this input, and I think the question of testing the results is very important, because we have soil tests, but we know that not all farms do it, so we may not have the results in all farms, but I'm interested to hear the governmental side, if there are any ways to test the results. But Mr. Jarosław Peczka, what is your
Witam Państwa.
welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My opinion is quite brutal, because with all of you I can agree, but I'm also a little anti. For what reason? Because my life is brutal, and I walk solidly on the earth, and I focus on facts for years. As a company for 35 years, we have been implementing biotechnology and farming with focus on environment, but not only to care for it, to increase productivity. And actually, eco schemes for me should be a reward for those who are doing it solidly and well, and we should not be creating pathologies, because if eco scheme actually somebody gets it only as an additional source of revenue. So when that source of revenue disappears, then care of environment will disappear. But we should be showing farmers, because being with them, with all respect, neither minister nor my company, none of us is needed when the farmers are not here. If we are not taking care of farmers, if we will not be with them at site and listening to them what to be implemented, and our innovative approach should be helping them to make use of their work to have additional benefits. I think this is the best what can happen, and additional reward. They will be receiving it with a nice smile as it is, but it will be permanent building of building. Nobody called it 10 years ago as Green Deal. Products of the solution were 3 times more expensive and laughed at as not needed. But our philosophy was always, as a company, looking 10 years ahead to make people aware, to train them, but to show them the positive aspect of these solutions. Now we have a little bit of the comparison. Well, in the past we had antibiotics, now we have probiotics. Everybody accepted it, that it is natural, not that they are paying us for using probiotics, but it's for our health. And if we are training and showing them wisely, but we have to go and talk to people. And I may only apologize to everybody from the Ministry of Agriculture, because we are brutal in everyday activities. But if we are discussing, it means we are very much after, because Polish agriculture is at a very high level. We have a lot of people involved involved with great motivation. 30 years ago, we had nothing. Each of us wanted success. Western Europe has a greater problem, but we must wake up, because now Western Europe is actually experiencing the crisis, and the next generation will wake up soon. And our generation, I always say, well-being kills, and we are entering in the period of well-being, and the next generation can have a problem. So now I would not be worried about our agriculture, our future, because we must be honest. Even if we argue, it's not because we do something against somebody. It's just like we demand, we as our advisors, to be trained at site so that they do not talk nonsense. So it's just like in biological aspect. I can hear that for 3 years everybody have been creating biology. There was a time if somebody was getting up earlier who was creating a company with biological solutions. There is a lot of pathology in it, but we have to be testing farmers, test new solutions, but test them wisely. Look, because nobody is becoming a farmer who will come from the town, buy 1,000 hectares of land. They will not become a farmer. Yes, they may have experts, but they will not be experts themselves. I have never been a politician, but I want to discuss toughly based on facts. I started from agriculture. I know what hard work is. I love farmers because my products must be bestsellers and advisors. We, as those who support the company, we must help them to implement. But then the farmer is best advertiser and partner for me. I'm proud if a farmer has been using my solutions for 30 years, created 30 years ago. If I go to a market or to a mall where the solutions, 9 out of 10 products are mine, I'm proud. Not that I advertise them, no. Advertisement can help only, but for none of my projects I got any subsidy. My company never got any subsidy, and we are where we are not because we are, we were getting presents. We are making the best, and we are taking care of our farmers. If we are not, if we are cheating them, we will not have whom to work for. Unless we understand that, we will not learn anything. And I kindly ask everybody to go and talk to farmers, to learn from them, because they will give us most hints. And do not let us listen to only those from Podlasie or from Western Pomerania, because when we go all through the country, we will take an average. It doesn't mean one or the other farmer is not right. No, everybody is right, but let us look at all these opinions, because then we will learn to draw a median out of it. Well, expectations in farmers vary, and eco schemes help it, but I wanted to give a chance to representatives of the Ministry of and agency to relate to what Mr. Baucza said. Is it possible to measure the results of implementing eco schemes? Well, honorable ladies and gentlemen, referring to eco schemes, this makes theory different from practice, because in theory, eco schemes should be adapted to the profile of the farm. In real life, the profile of the farm sometimes is adapted to eco schemes, and this should not be the case, because I know what I can benefit from, and I do this. Will it be a better payment, or no, what does it result from? Here we have some employees. He who earns a lot in basic salary is not taking overtime. The same with farmer. If it paid to produce, the farmer would not look whether they get 200 zlotys more in eco schemes. No, they earn on what they are producing, but unfortunately, often there is shortage of money, and everybody see that they could benefit from these funds. Earlier, there were more funds directed to investment activities, so it went into modernization, into activities renewing machine depots, and gave an opportunity to modernize barns and inventory buildings. But it is difficult to evaluate it after 2 or 3 years of operation, because those results will come, but not in such such a short time perspective. It is sometimes better to prevent rather than cure, and this is the prophylactics of subsidies, so that we can benefit from it. We also have various practices, and what was scaring us at the very beginning, so geotagged photos and registers which were to be filled in, and now a clerk with constant internet connection, after one click they get results, and compare them to a farmer who went to the most distant field by the forest and clicks and waits 3 hours to get it confirmed. So he must focus on transporting the manure and mix it with soil. And what for these results? To avoid nitrogen escaping, but rather than that, to have it staying in the ground. Everybody must use atmospheric conditions, so they don't need to be in a hurry on a rainy day, but on a sunny day they must do it and mix it with soil as fast as possible. So some eco schemes proved work better, some less, and when we had this dilemma, we sat together to reduce the level of subsidies within eco schemes. Then each of the eco schemes, each of them was studied individually. What was its significance, both for environmental aspects but also social, because manure not mixed with soil results in telephone calls to the police that he left manure on the ground for the weekend, and this is what the ministry needs to cope with. So maintaining the production function of the village. Several things have been simplified, like excluding 4% from production, which became a voluntary eco scheme, and it appeared that some farmers benefit from it. Not saying that one region is better, one is worse, because this is not how we should be evaluating it. But we know in some regions there are more people who want to benefit from this eco scheme. In other regions, it is not actually of great interest, because if there is hunger of grounds, nobody will be excluding production to get money from eco scheme. And also those new eco schemes appearing were not invented by the ministry alone or agency of the restructuring, but this is a response to the needs of farmers and those who want to benefit from it. And the envelope is in common, whether from this scheme or the other, the farmer is gaining money. But we want to implement a new eco scheme and have money from it, and on the other hand, to benefit in the farm. So, for example, plow less and various other topics will show up, but also improving the well-being of animals. This is what we put stakes on from the accession of Poland to the EU. These activities, adaptation to European standards, were in place where actually manure boards and tanks, reservoirs appeared, and how do we name it? It's another thing. I'm most angry that in every perspective, every activity, we have to put a different name to it. Seemingly the same goals are fulfilled, but clerks, officials have a problem learning all the long names. Rather than the farmer who has to use the name once a year, twice a year. So we have to simplify, deregulate what was complicated too much, rather than to consider what a name to apply to the mechanism or the project. The point is to utilizing the potential of the farm possibly best to be able to benefit from funds prepared for this purpose. Thank you very much. And President Leszek Szymański in the same subject. subject. I find it hard to refer to because the agency plays a difficult role, because we are to pass the funds to farmers, to prove to auditors that the things which we are in control of, we allocate funds for, have really happened, and that all was in place, and this is what we are accountable for, and whether we have no budgetary corrections. But I agree with my predecessors that evaluation regarding eco schemes is actually in progress, because all these changes which happened in 2025, I guess were analysis and sense of certain eco schemes and certain payments, because in 2023 the area under eco schemes was almost 11 million hectares. Out of this, a quarter, 2.6 million hectares, were simplified systems of farming, whereas 2.1 million hectares was the practice mixing straw with soil. So actually half funds which went to eco schemes were allocated for these two practices. And I can blindly agree with you without making any test that the funds for integrated production or biological protection were of greater influence on environmental effect, but we as agency do not have results of such tests. We have all statistical data both regarding finance and implementation of eco schemes. However, I believe that by all means we need evaluation of these eco schemes, because even contacting, farmers who raise their comments to us, then the number of eco schemes versus now reduction to 2 payments. So I guess there will be some reflection in the following period that these funds have to be redirected maybe elsewhere. Thank you. So, as you have the microphone, I would like to ask, because there are 3 months until closing 2024, but I think farmers, both those present in the audience and those listening to us on the internet, would like to have figures showing the direct payments and also eco schemes, what they look like now, and if there are conclusions from inspections and administrative conclusions regarding implementations and changes which should take place in the following perspective. And we have new call in progress, so whether in this call anything happened which is of interest and which changes the perspective looking at the eco schemes. Well, I will say something controversial in relation to farmers, but when I talked of the 6 eco schemes after protests of farmers, where we had very tough discussions last year, we implemented eco scheme number 7, more Clark-related empathy to the farmer. It may sound funny, but when calls for applications started, farmers actually were cross with us that the agency demanded something, told to take pictures. So actually in agency of restructuring we were actually brought to being sober when one of you gentlemen said, without farmers we would not exist, so we have to go back to the roots as clerks. No, we should be actually moving around farmers, because thanks to them we have our jobs and we operate, and a lot of simplifications have been introduced. It was mentioned until 2024, that means giving up the obligatory 4% laying off grounds from production. Madam Director is here, you will agree with me. Few people believe that this requirement will be waived after protests of farmers, and it became a voluntary eco scheme. We had GAIC 6, GAIC 7. Yes, regarding the soil cover until mid-October, with a break for preparing soil for winter.
Jak były protesty rolnicze, agencja wydzwaniała.
When there were protests, the agency was calling, please send a statement to the agency. Please send a register. We cannot publish a decision. Just remember, when there was no register, so there were sanctions. You could actually appeal from this, but there were maybe lines of resistance. No, we will give nothing to the agency. We will not fulfill any requirements. So actually the staff of the agency found, please, we need this document to be able to issue the decision. You may globally not agree with me, but everybody internally knows how it worked at the end of 2023 for this eco scheme company to campaign to be closed. And as the moderator mentioned, the first thing which we agree with, the farmers were most cross with us, those who applied for well-being payments. So over 90,000 in 2023 and over 113,000 in 24. What is the money? We are in the farm the whole year, and you are putting off the payment time. It resulted from the fact that reference periods regarding well-being of animals actually end mid-March, so we had to wait till mid-March to see the number of beneficiaries fulfilling the requirements, pass this information to the ministry. Ministry, based on this, prepared a resolution about rates and drawing conclusions from 2023 not to withhold payments for farmers who are most involved and who allocate most work into their production. We split, so well-being payments are a separate decision and direct payments separate decision. Thanks to splitting these decisions and eco scheme number 7, empathy, today we have 97.5% farmers have decisions already issued, so very little remained to be solved. And things like check at site and appeals where people do not accept the area established by the agency, and farmers who used eco schemes, 113. It is almost 13 million zlotys to be so very soon the farmers will get their money. So rationality in approach seems to be significant compared to year 2023. So this is what it looks like today. Maybe if you have some detailed questions, then I will. Time is pressing on us, so I think for more details we will run short of time. But valuation of these changes and eco schemes for 2024, I'm interested in the opinion of farmers. Mr. Nowak, National Chamber of Agriculture. National Council of Agricultural Chambers. Before I answer, so regarding paying for effects, very briefly, if you allow. So actually, in many cases, this is the case. The whole well-being of animals are measurable effects. This is a question of living area and area for free running and grazing, and all these are measurable effects which are visible. Actually, the only effect which is verifiable, it's a question of increasing the soil content, the carbon content in soil, and in 2 years it's not achievable. So I'm not against paying for effects, but I believe that this is the case in most cases, because either specific activity and specific area of honey bearing ground or the living stand for a pig or a cow. But what about what you were asking? Campaign 2024 shows that farmers evaluated better than 2023 because they filed more applications. So this tells us that there is more interest, although we are also trying to adapt to the rules of the game in force. And what will be in campaign of 2025, I guess the next increase will happen, although actually there are few hectares on which some eco scheme is not working yet, and those limitations related to the fact that we can apply for 300 up to 300 hectares to 2 eco areas. Well, actually the kilt is short and there are little funds, and not to make people uninterested in so low rates, which will simply be not interesting for anybody. Such decisions were needed at the moment, but I guess we will touch on it soon. Well, you have already raised this topic, unless there is a comment regarding the situation of 2024 system being closing down now, but would representatives of agribusiness like to add something as your evaluation of farmers' approach to the implementation of eco schemes last year? Mr. Baucza, I'm glad that there are more and more. Well, I hope every farmer will be able to benefit from these subsidies, but activities with awareness taken up in their fields, if regarding this effect, I understand that these are things which are visible and these results, but in reality, so that we all, as all farmers, know the objective of introducing all that, so that all these payments, as far as I remember, were to motivate for more pro-environmental approach to agricultural production. And what you mentioned here now, that we have various regulations in place which are reducing the rates and so on. Here I agree with you. Will it really be motivating to avoid soon a situation that somebody will say, no, it doesn't pay because I will not get it, or it's too little. This is also slightly risky, but let me repeat that I'm glad there are more and more farmers, and I hope every farmer will be able to benefit from any payment, doing something more focused on the environment, so that the farm is operating better and better. So here I hope that these results, specific results, I agree with you that in the ground you cannot show the content of carbon increasing in soil year on year, because these are processes which take years. But if we even carried out monitoring of grounds year on year of every field in the farm, we would have better control over our production, and then it would be perhaps easier and sooner to increase the content of carbon in soil, because what we miss is understanding of the overall goal and why we are doing it. And here I think that if education will change, and if education is directed like this, so not only farmers, but all environment, all producers will benefit from it.
To jest trochę też tak, że
so referring to these eco schemes,
brutalny i prosty przykład, jak się zastanowimy.
Brutal example. Why a small child is crying?
Ostatnią jakby deską ratunku jest po prostu krzyk.
So the last resource is shouting if nobody is responding. The same is with farmers. If they don't hear us, there is frustration at the end and shouting. So this is how we can explain it. And if we all make an input to it, creating and implementing new solutions, and I think that there are few companies and people who can implement those innovative solutions, sometimes difficult to implement. I think we will all be successful, and exceptional difficult farmers who shout most loudly and are very recognizable. If we approach them business-wise, like a customer raising complaints, everybody in business knows that the toughest complaint may generate the best business partner for the future. But if we know that we are doing something good and we are 100% sure, certain of our solutions, we don't give in. We tend to explain, like explaining to a child, to sit and talk in partnership partnership, and then we have a partner. We are not quarreling. We come to the conclusion we needed that argument in order to come to a common opinion. And as I said, if we generate new eco-schemes, let us try to talk more broadly so that we implement them possibly best, because regarding animal well-being, some solutions which are not mentioned at all can fulfill much greater effect and give us better results than what we are doing now. But we have to talk more, because we actually walk solidly on the ground, and if we are 100% certain of something, we believe in what we do and we never give in. And here we are talking about 3 years. We cannot be evaluating. The perspective of 3 years in agriculture is nothing. So there might be enthusiasm, then getting tired, but we never give in. We possibly adapt, listening to our partners, the farmers, and then we can raise our agriculture, because I believe we have experience in agriculture both in Arabic countries, in the UK or in the EU. Believe me, we have really agriculture at good level, but we must be promoting it. We must want to talk to the farmers, and we will all benefit. The officials, the clerks, and the public and farmers, but we must not give in. We must discuss toughly, but listen to opinions from the other side. Thank you for this input, and we are coming to the final part of our debate. We'll be talking about eco-schemes for 2025, proposals for changes which have already happened, because the call is already in progress and the changes will be in force. So let me remind you the main changes in eco-schemes this year. It is limiting them to 300 hectares and to introduce subsidy to seed material, and changing the points regarding mixing soil with straw and integrated production. Let me ask representatives of the ministry and the agency first, Mr. Krajewski and Mr. Szymański, to tell us a little bit more about changes prepared for the next year, and then I would like to ask representatives of the agriculture sector and agro-business, asking for your comments if these changes are going in the right direction. Welcome, Mr. Minister, the floor is yours. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, well, there are a few things we have to mention here. It's those limitations. What do they result from? Well, in line with Polish constitution, family company is up to 300 hectares. So we believe that these farmers deserve greatest support, and within eco-schemes the subsidy is additional. And this is being done in order to avoid thinking mid-year that again we have to be cutting down on payments, and as we already struggled with it, and considering which eco-scheme we can take aware more from what farmer gets and where less, because it was a rule that in 2024 we had to cut 25% in every farm if we actually went along one scheme. And also we have experience that by 2.3 million hectares the area was increased within eco-schemes, and this results also from no limitations being there. Now there are eco-schemes you can benefit maximum from 2. It is not related to a few cases where is water retention included, and where there are practices related to carbon farming, and what is to serve the new eco-scheme here, subsidies to qualified seeds, and we are also after maintaining quality, but also less consumption of chemicals and plant protection chemicals, and it was mentioned earlier, if there is such a trend in Europe that more and more active substances are being reduced, then the
biologizację, że to będzie...
Chemical is becoming more biological protection. So biological protection will be winning against chemical. And this eco scheme, which we are talking about, related on the one hand to biological protection and also
produkty
those microbiological fertilization products,
tam są
products which we will be able to use. There are actually rules to be adhered to. They must be on the Young internet page as tested and approved products, appropriate purchasing when it was done, and of course application of them must be actually provided until 15th of September. The products couldn't have been bought earlier, that after 15 July the year before, so that all that is measurable and possible and verifiable. But also there are two big changes which we also have to mention, although we as ministry and agency do not find it easy to talk about this, but these are the questions related to the strategic plan, so social conditionality. But also we worked here with State Job Inspectorate to have those inspections only related to those farms which are employers employing labor based on labor law. It is not affecting farmers hiring seasonal workers for harvesting, but GAEK 2, which is today also a source of many complaints from the farmers and their dissatisfaction. It was actually assumed in 2022, and this thickness of 40 centimeters and content of carbon, earlier mentioned 30%, would give 600,000 hectares. We managed reducing it to 40%, where over 170 hectares could be excluded from this, but also a significant part of it is related to permanent green areas, 9-10% it's arable land, and it is not only so, because we will additionally be giving interpretation of regulations so that the current maintenance, mud removal from ditches and removing bushes is not building drainage trenches, so we will keep informing of it. So, Mr. President, would you like to add anything? I will only, as I represent the paying agency, I will say what those changes came from, because if we have 3.7 billion euros for payments in the given year, 15% out of it being for sectoral payments, that means related for food, for plant and animal production and mini schemes. So there is a question of increasing 25%, but at the cost of basic support of revenue in agriculture. So these changes were resulted by this. And regarding social conditioning, because it is a very popular topic, but it is like the geotagged photo, because following the state labor inspector, there will be a couple dozen inspections. If some
to będzie tylko w decyzji.
Actually, incompatibilities will be noted. So broadly, the sanction will not be applied. So ending the input. And thank you. And as promised, I would like to ask other panelists about their comment whether the changes you mentioned are good. Those introduced this year. I think they are good because it also shows that we want to appreciate Polish solutions, but I will mention a Polish system we will be talking about, and I will outline it to take care not only of rural but also town environment, biologization regarding welfare of animals. Well, actually, for over 20 years products applied to
co przekłada nam się na większe wbudowanie tych związków strukturalnych.
So applying chemicals to
Rolnik, jeżeli są tutaj tacy, którzy używają naszych rozwiązań od 30 lat,
mulching. Well, you have two reservoirs with manure, use biological solutions for the
wyrzucony czy wylany na pole jest zupełnie innym nawozem.
well, such product applied to the field is a completely different manure. And what do we benefit as a town if there is less ammonia? Well, it stinks less. Sometimes we don't know that there is a farm nearby. So with small money we can implement it. We would even get a prize. So we have a ready solution and everybody are satisfied from it. Thank you, Mr. Adam Baucza. It's good that all the time this evaluation is going on and aiming at this from the perspective of ministry and the agency for this to be more simple, more available and for possibly most or even all farmers to be able to use these additional subsidies. Let us remember that we have one agriculture, whatever we call it, carbon, ecological, sustainable, or whatever names we use, biological, regenerative. But there is one agriculture and one eco scheme, one payment for the fact that it will be better, that the farmer will actually inflict a less measurable effect on environment. It would be enough to motivate those who are not doing it or do not agree in this trend and in such production, more friendly, more environmental friendly, with lesser negative influence on environment, less emission of the greenhouse gases, ammonia and CO2 and NOx's to have, because this is what we are all after, because the Paris Accords are all what we as a country have, but there's responsibility on us as farmers in the form of the fact that we are producing food and we have to produce the food possibly best quality and best quantity with possibly least influence on environment. And one eco scheme which would be subsidizing those who have lesser influence than others would be enough. And last input, Mr. Nowak, regarding changes extending the eco scheme package by seeds, biological protection of plants, we are satisfied. We believe it is a very good direction. We are not necessarily satisfied by limitations regarding two eco schemes and the area, because this, depending on the farm, some farmers are able to accept it, some not. But we understand that this was the choice of lesser evil in a situation we are in now. But if you allow me one sentence more, eco schemes are not only, but they generate also for us administrative obligations. This unfortunate bureaucracy. Gentlemen, really, when we sit at 8 a.m. In the morning on Sunday to all these registers, then we end at 4 p.m. What does it mean if I did it in something on the 10th of March? No, it's important to do it in the agricultural period. Let's change this, and thank you for this additional eco scheme, empathy for farmer. We appreciate what staff of agency, not only agency of restructurization, but all agencies serving the ministry do, and it is very necessary because we have to understand one another. Maybe let's do the utmost for solutions to be active to the economic benefit for the farmer, and eco scheme to be an additional prize award, and we will be all satisfied. So one sentence to Robert. If I were Clark, without empathy, I would say, hey, you should start on Sunday at 6 a.m., not 8, and then it would be easier. But no, we have to simplify, because farmer with care is doing everything with care for the farm and not for the clerk, for the official. For us, it is more important sometimes to actually file a calf for the register rather than feeding it. So
Dziękuję panu również.
thank you. Also, well, we stole a few minutes of time. I think the discussion was worth it. Thank you. And my guests were Mr. Stefan Krajewski, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Areas.
Pan Leszek Szymański.
Mr. Leszek Szymański, Deputy President of Agency of Restructurization and Modernization of Farming, Mr. Jarosław Peczka, owner of Biogen and co-owner of BioLeader and PROCAM Polska. And we also had Mr. Baucza, President of the Foundation for Development of Agriculture, Terra, Nostra, and last but not least, Mr. Baucza, President of the Foundation for Development of
W imieniu organizatorów
and a farmer. And I encourage you to participate in further debates today and tomorrow. I think a lot of interesting discussions will be going on, and the topic you touched on, what are the conclusions and implementations after last year's protests, will appear in further teams. So the questions we didn't get comprehensive response, you will hear in the next ones for sure. Thank you for your kind attention.